Hello, welcome to TelecomTV. I'm Martin Warwick and we are at TelecomTV's very own event, our first one. It's called DSP Leaders Forum 2019 and I'm talking with an old friend, I won't say that old, Martin Taylor, CTO of Metaswitch. Martin, thanks for talking to us. Great to see you again. You were on a panel this morning, which I observed from the back of the room quietly, which was talking public cloud. And let's discuss that, shall we? Does it make sense, do you think, for CSPs, as they actually transmute into DSPs in due course, to work with public cloud operators?
So, of course, they already work together in a myriad of ways, in terms of providing pipes into the cloud and so on. We have a very specific view about how they can actually work together more closely that has to do with advancing the virtualization agenda. And so the narrative really is this, that telcos have actually struggled somewhat to build the telco cloud within which to run virtualized network functions. It's a difficult thing to do. And the tools that they have, like OpenStack, are hard to work with. And they found it to be expensive to hire the kinds of people that know how to run this sort of stuff. And frankly, they're subscale compared with the likes of Google and Amazon and Microsoft, who have a global cloud footprint. And with that scale, they've got the skills to build a stack that is incredibly rich, incredibly powerful, attractive to developers, but also very cost effective to operate because there's a tremendous amount of automation in there. So the question is, how can telcos benefit from that technology base, rather than viewing these cloud operators as competitors?
So public cloud works better for CSPs.
So we've done quite a lot of work getting virtualized network functions running in public cloud. And there are some technical issues, but I think by and large that's not really where the problem lies. The problem is one of business, and the challenge is that you want to run an application in a public cloud. You pay for the compute resource by the hour or the minute or whatever it is. Well, that's operating expense, and telcos do not like anything that adds to operating expense. Their business model says we need to invest in assets and then sweat those assets to deliver services. So that sort of classical model of running stuff in the public cloud does not work for them. What might work for them is that they build the physical infrastructure for their telco cloud. They buy the servers, they buy the switches, they have the facilities. That's an asset. But then they get the public cloud software stack to run on those assets to provide a much richer, more powerful environment for running their VNFs, and potentially outsource the operation of that stack to the public cloud operator, who can do it at much lower cost than the telco can.
Is there any indication that any CSP would do that or is prepared to do it yet?
I think we're beginning to see some glimmerings around that. Part of the problem, of course, is that until very recently, you couldn't get your hands on public cloud stack software to run on your own hardware. But we've started to see some offerings coming into the market in the last 6 months or so. Yes, Amazon have a thing called Outposts.
Yes, I've heard of it.
Google announced a thing called Anthos. Microsoft has Azure Stack, and these are all they reflect a recognition on the part of the public cloud operators that not every enterprise wants to run everything in public cloud. This idea of hybrid cloud is really important here. So some workloads you want to run on your own assets in your own data center. But you want the agility, if you like, to move workloads back and forth between public cloud and your own cloud. And what you want is a uniform stack, if you like, for doing that. So that's what's motivating the public cloud operators to make this kind of software available. And what I'm suggesting is that maybe telcos can take advantage of this movement, and as I say, stop struggling with OpenStack. Embrace these public cloud stacks, and just maybe life will be a lot easier from the point of view of virtualizing their network functions.
We've spoken in the past a lot about open source, OpenStack, the whole gamut, the whole pancake layers of open. You said at the very start they're very difficult to work with. Why so?
it's just the nature of cloud software. I mean, a cloud stack is an incredibly complicated piece of software.
Sure.
There's just a huge number of moving parts.
Yeah.
And you need there are a gazillion different configuration options, each of which has got implications. It's very complicated to do to upgrade the software and service, this kind of thing. So it's just a very, very expensive operation to run a cloud. Running a cloud, even if you're a telco with 50 million customers, running a cloud to operate, to host your own network functions. You're a tiny, tiny little cloud compared with the global footprint of an Amazon.
Yeah.
Because of the size of those global footprints, people like Amazon, Microsoft, Google can afford to employ armies of incredibly smart people to build and maintain these stacks. And without the constraints of the sort of multi-vendor, slightly ungoverned Wild West of the open source world. Of course, there's a lot of open source in that stuff, but there's also a lot of proprietary software that they bring together. And I'm just saying, I think it's time telcos recognize that open source is so far from being free, it's almost a joke, and accepted that there's a better way of building clouds than trying to do it yourself.
Do you think that it's purely the technological and expense side of it that makes CSPs loath to do this, or is it because of the culture as well? Because
of course,
we know that they never want to let anything go.
There's partly a not invented here aspect to this.
Yeah.
There's partly also a reluctance to admit that maybe somebody else that historically they've competed with can maybe work with them. Although of course, as I said, they cooperate very extensively around providing pipes into clouds and all that kind of stuff. So I don't see why they can't get over that. But look, I think there's one other factor which is really important here, and that's when it comes to the edge. So the industry is very excited about edge as a new kind of cloud environment where we can run a whole new class of applications that potentially are revenue generators for whoever is in charge.
Yep.
Right? And of course, telcos have got real estate at the edge. That real estate is where the network traffic is coming into the network. So it's the logical place to run that sort of stuff. But in order for this to be monetizable, if that's a word, you've got to have an environment and an ecosystem that will attract developers to write applications that will actually leverage the cloud. If you have each and every telco building their own particular edge stack, you've got a fragmented ecosystem, and you've got nothing like the critical mass that's going to attract developers. And not only that, but those stacks are going to be very skinny in terms of the platform as a service functionalities they offer. When you look at a typical public cloud offering like Azure or Amazon Web Services, there's like 200 platform as a service capabilities there. Database as a service, security as a service. You name it. Telco clouds haven't got any of that stuff, right? So it's not a friendly environment for attracting developers. So, if you're a telco and you want to build out the edge cloud, then what better than bring in, partner with one of the public cloud operators, and instantly you've got an ecosystem there that's got the richness of functionality and the ability to onboard developers rapidly and make that an attractive environment so that this thing can be monetized. And yes, of course, that means there's some revenue sharing that's going to have to happen. But sharing some revenue is better than not making any.
Well, precisely, because I was wondering when we were going to talk about money. Because what we've been talking about, of course, the CSPs also want to keep the money. They want to hang on. You can't blame them for it in so many ways. But you sometimes wonder whether it's, cutting your nose off to spite your face, because as we've seen in many cases, if it drifts away, it's very hard to get it back. And if you don't, it sounds a cliche, but strike while the iron's hot or jump when you get the chance passes by and that's it.
Yes. And, if you can't beat them, join them.
Well, precisely. Let's finish this off by talking about Metaswitch. What does all this mean for Metaswitch?
We're excited about the possibility of public cloud software accelerating the progress towards virtualized networks.
Yep.
And of course, we see ourselves playing a role in that.
Of course.
We've prided ourselves on the ability for us to get our VNFs running in public cloud. We first did this in 2012 before NFV was even a thing. So it's a story that we've been telling for many years. And I think the thing that we always failed to understand probably was this issue around network operators not wanting the opex hit of running stuff in public cloud.
Yeah.
But this, in recent months, this idea of the public cloud stack becoming available to telcos for deployment on their own assets, that potentially is a massive leap forward, if you like, and an enabler for this new way of doing things.
What impact do you think the NFV, or the lack of NFV, or the perceived lack of the progress of NFV, or the disappointment or over expectations of NFV is having on all of this? Because you and I, and God knows I've followed NFV since it was knee-high to a grasshopper, as they say, and great expectations from it. But it's taking longer than was anticipated. But it's still perfectly likely to happen, is it not?
Yeah, so it absolutely will happen, and I think 5G will be a tipping point.
Yeah.
I mean, partly because the 5G standards kind of push you very much towards building things in a more cloud-friendly way. I won't necessarily say cloud native, because you can build 5G core without being cloud native, and I suspect quite a number of vendors will. But at the same time, I mean, in talking to network operators, we sense that they are being far more demanding now of their vendors, and they're saying, look, this is a new generation of technology. We want it built in the new generation way of doing stuff. And I think the main reason that NFV has been so slow is because what the industry's been trying to do is take legacy network functions, and I hate to describe LTE as a legacy network, but it's been around for 15 years or whatever. So taking a packet core was designed to run an appliance and try and get it running in the cloud is, that's problematic. Sure. and it hasn't delivered results. If you write software from scratch for the cloud, then the benefits flow very rapidly, as we've proven with some of our big customers, deploying tens of millions of subscribers on a cloud native IMS. It's incredible how robust and scalable and inexpensive to operate that kind of system is in practice. And I think those are the benefits that people are looking forward to with 5G. So I think 5G will be the inflection point in this whole NFV saga.
Saga's the word. Let's hope it finally comes to an end, a bit like, what's it called, Game of Thrones. Like that. Martin Taylor, as usual, thanks very much.
Thank you.